listeners. Today, I will be talking to the great and powerful Geeta Ramanujam, who requires no introduction, but I will give her introduction nonetheless. This is a document I'm reading off of so that I don't miss any parts. Geeta Ramanujam wears many hats. She is the founder and executive director of Kathalaya, the House of Stories established in 1998. Geeta also founded Kathalaya's International Academy of Storytelling, and through their training courses have reached out to schools, corporate, NGOs, parents, professionals in the arts field, and counselors. KIAS is the only globally recognized academy for storytelling, which certifies people through its beginners and diploma courses. A dedicated and experienced teacher, school coordinator, curriculum designer, and developer for international institutions and schools across the globe, Geeta has over 40 years of experience in the integration storytelling with concepts in education. She also trains corporate in business storytelling and has reached out to over 150 corporate sectors with her training. Geeta is the pioneer and entrepreneur of storytelling movement in India and has reached out to over 93,641 educators and teachers through her workshop and courses. She has traveled to over 43 countries and all the 27 states in India to spread storytelling as an educational and cultural tool of learning. She has won several accolades, including the Best Narrative Award from the Governor of Tamil Nadu and the Best International Storytellers Award from Brazil. She was also mentioned recently by our Prime Minister in his Mann Ki Batt program. And now I bring you the great and powerful Geeta Ramanujam. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So cool to hear your voice.
Wonderful.
I'm glad we could make this happen. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
But before I get started, is it okay if I refer to you as Geeta? That would be very respectful.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Would it be respectful or it'd be disrespectful is my question. I didn't mean to say it would be respectful.
No, Geeta is perfect.
Geeta is perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks and welcome, Geeta, for joining us today. And
yes.
You're such a busy human being. And before I even get started, like I have your introduction here, and I won't go through it. I won't bore you through it. This is a spectacular resume. I'm sure you've heard people introduce you all the time. I will add it in after post.
Okay.
And man, there's so many things I want to get into. First of all, it's such an honor, Geeta, that you're on this platform. Like, I barely have a few 50, 100 views on the previous video. So I'll be very transparent with you. I have big dreams. I have big dreams for this platform for myself. And for you to be the second guest, it's just like I have to pinch myself,
Oh. Honored.
Absolutely honored.
So Rajiv, I just have a quick question.
Yes.
This is going to be a podcast or the video and
It's a great question. So let's kind of lay out the ground rules.
okay.
This will be a video podcast like the previous one I did with an abstract artist.
Yes.
And as well as on all the other platforms, Spotify, iTunes, the whole deal.
Oh. Okay.
It's already out there. So it automatically gets kind of loaded into both. And have you done a podcast before or have you watched before?
No,
I'm sure.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. You have.
I have.
Oh my God. So what has been your experience so far?
I think there are a lot of people who connect better through a podcast, and those who know you especially. Okay. And I think just listening to the voice is very different from watching a person and listening. Right. So you kind of know the difference between the two.
What do you like better? Like both watching and listening?
Both are fine. Both are fine.
Okay. Yeah, I like both as well. Do you have any
Yes.
favorite podcasts that you listen to regularly?
No, I don't really listen so much because of the times constraint.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Except certain discourses that I listen to, but that's already a pre-recorded one. So
Okay.
I just listen to that. Yeah.
Okay.
But not more than that. Yes.
Okay. Today, as far as what I'm going to get into with you, as open-ended as your assistant Daiva was asking me what we would be talking about. And so I was saying to her, look, I understand you have a time constraint, but I want to get into as much as possible organically, just kind of talk through it
Yes.
open-ended. And
Fantastic.
I have a lot of notes I've taken for myself, so I'll try to get. And at any point you have to leave because you have other commitments, please let me know. We'll end it right there, and this will be great.
So yeah, Rajiv, thank you, because it's been raining heavily every evening,
right,
and there are power cuts as usual, and you know very well how Bangalore
right,
is. So what happened is today there was a so we are connected on the internet at the office through what we call as ACT,
yeah,
but the internet was down because the fiber lines, everything just burst.
right,
So now I've come home and I'm connecting it to the internet at home. Now nothing is very stable. So I just want to tell you somewhere in between, if there is a little fluctuation or if suddenly the power goes off, it takes a while for the UPS to restart the system,
sure,
about 5 or 10 minutes, in which case I think I'll just connect with you on the telephone.
yeah,
Yeah, so I hope that switch doesn't happen. Otherwise, since I'm at home now, the time is not a problem.
okay,
I don't have to go back anywhere. If it was the office, I might have wanted to have it just for about an hour, because after 6:30 the roads get flooded and I have to drive back. But now that I'm at home, I
yeah.
think there's no issue at all.
Oh, this is great. I have absolutely no problem with time and reconnecting and
Yeah.
all of that. Like your time,
Okay.
oh my God, this is gonna be
Right.
so cool.
Okay.
By the way, before we get into it, have I really like your necklace and your
Oh, thank you.
adornments.
How sweet.
How did you have such a unique style, Geeta? Like, I mean, how did you get it? How did you develop your style over the years?
Myself?
Whatever,
You're
like
saying?
your style of like grooming yourself to be,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very, to me, it's so unique. It's very eye-catching. I look at somebody
Okay.
like yourself across the room and I'm immediately drawn, like there's something different about this person because they obviously look different in a very good way. Well, I mean,
Thank you.
walk me through it. Walk me through it, if you
Uh,
don't mind.
yeah, sure. I think some things you don't know, it just comes naturally. My mother, she has a very, my mother, my aunts, both my aunts, they have an eye for colors, they have an eye for design, they have an eye for just getting the right things, I think. And I've seen my mother really dressing up very well. She's very particular about how she looks. And I don't know, because she's from a village actually, but when she came into the city in Mumbai, and we were quite poor. I mean, my parents were very poor, but I still admire that she used to even give away the vessels to get the one beautiful sari,
Oh,
and she had an eye for picking up the right kind of jewelry for
mm,
herself. Of course, the taste was very different because they are from the older generation, and she would go more for the gold and silver. But I felt I always liked something which was not gold, but the matching part of it I think comes from my mother. to have the best ones, the best colors, and to look attractive. I remember my mother would always groom herself before people came home. And I think that is a very important part that I noticed about her, whether it was arranging the dishes or anything of that sort.
Did you dress like this when you worked at Valley School by any chance?
A little bit.
Really?
Yes.
That's so cool. You must have
And
really stuck out everywhere.
I guess, yeah, and it just many. I know there were a lot of raised eyebrows.
I bet.
Yeah.
So I was reading through your introduction. It said you were recently mentioned by our Prime Minister in his Mann Ki Baat program. Like, that is so cool. Congratulations. Like, what was the context of mentioning you?
This came as a surprise for me, because I know he's one of the busiest people, and it was actually it caught me by surprise, shock, everything, because I had no clue that he's going to mention me, and that he would have even thought of storytelling as a very important part of a culture, or somebody who's struggled all these years to bring up storytelling of all people. And I thought it was very unlike all other prime ministers and the great leaders who went for the very cliched things, and that he even picked up storytelling as one of the indigenous arts that India has, and to find out the person who had actually begun this, to have his, whether it was his research team, but that interest, that really, I mean, I was honored. I was so happy, because you go looking for a prime minister, you don't know where you will get an appointment from him,
Right.
and how do you approach and all that stuff. And suddenly somebody called me up and said, you know what, congrats Geeta, because you were mentioned by the prime minister. I said, when was this? And she said, why don't you switch on the television right now and you can watch the whole thing. And when I watched, I was so surprised, because he not only mentioned my name, the organization's name, he even said, he pronounced my name so perfectly, Geeta Ramanujam, and that my organization is called Kathalaya.org. And he also requested people, please go to the website and check on this website. I think it was fantastic to just listen to him, and I was really honored. And he put a picture of mine, so really
cool,
great.
so cool.
Yeah.
What is your opinion about the Prime Minister, if you don't mind me asking you? And we can edit this out if.
Yeah, I know. See, there are mixed feelings that I have, because
I don't mean to get political. Let me just preface this.
I know.
Yeah.
I think not because he mentioned me in Mann Ki Baat, but I think he's unique in a sense that some leaders, that they're born leaders, and those who can reach out to the common man. He might be charismatic. He might be having his goals in view. He might be thinking way ahead of a time, but the very fact that he's active, and he's doing something at this age as a role model. We haven't had a role model for a very, very, very long time. And I think it was, of course, Indira Gandhi was one of my role models, because she was a very dynamic personality. But after that, I think there was nobody to follow up. So as a personality, as a person, you can look up to a busy, dynamic leader of a nation. And also, I think one of the few people who can, despite the language barrier, that he's able to connect with leaders from around the world. I mean, it requires a different kind of confidence, a very confident and very thing, and I think integrity, because I don't know how the people around him are, but as an individual, he's a fantastic person. I mean, one can see, especially on the political side, that, he's able to hold something together. So I have that about him. Of course, nothing comes without, you cannot please all the people all the time. So
Right.
it always comes with opinions and people, misinterpreting, and a lot of things are there. Yeah.
Yeah, I really want to get, one of the reasons why I ask you this question is because I really want to get like a well-rounded view of what's going on in India politically, and especially with the leader. I've kind of got hot and cold along the way, where I was very pro Modi and everything, and I noticed the things he was doing, kind of bold steps. And then along the way, I feel like I got swayed by media and all that, and then my relatives talking about certain things. And then I see the polarization on social media and all that, and I'm like, I need to really form my opinion. So I need to really like read up and educate myself, because I struggle with it as much as anybody else. I see two different views, and then I hear what you're saying. You're dead on. I agree. That's one thing. Integrity has been one thing, and like you said, like we've been lacking a role model for a long time, and I feel like it's a very underrated sentiment. Like we don't have like a public, I don't know, you tell me, Geeta. It's like I feel like do we have enough public intellectuals speak out in favor of reason and logic in our society today? You don't think so?
Yeah. It's very sad because it's more of a deteriorating leadership that we have. You look at an education minister or health minister, I mean, nobody whom you can look up to and ask for an opinion, or I don't even know if they know half of what a common man knows. So that's sad, because I think the intellectual media, the intellectual people who are capable are not also willing to take up responsibility. So there are two things about this. There are lovely, young, dynamic people who can take up responsibility, but I think because they shirk from that, somebody has to be in charge, and so we end up with all these.
It takes a lot of courage, doesn't it?
Yeah, because most of the time it is that you're not respected. You will not be, you'll have to fight a tidal wave because of what the previous ministers have left behind. It's a lot of cleaning up to do, and nobody wants to do that. That's why I appreciate Modi, because despite a lot of things, he's trying his best to kind of, in his own capacity, to reach out, to clear up. And it requires a lot of stone-heartedness. In some things, you'll have to be very cold. You can't have both, So, well, but I wish there were two more people like him, and it would be a wonderful place.
You're here, right? You're the other person.
Another person who might not want to take responsibility.
Oh my God, I see you as such a charismatic figure who can, who can tell story. Like, this is the thing I wanted to ask you, is that, like, so as far as storytelling goes, like, why do you think, I'm sure you've been asked this question a million times, but I remember when we spoke in 2019 when I was in India, and you had really changed my mind about a lot of things, amongst one of which was, like you were saying, the most important story you tell is this one you tell yourself, right?
Yes.
And like, what is this? I'm curious, if you don't mind sharing, and you don't have to share it. What is the story you tell yourself? Or what have you told yourself most recently that's very impactful to yourself?
Most recently, what I've told myself, especially because of the COVID, the pandemic, that nothing is permanent. It's one thing to do a Vipassana course, or to do a meditation course, which keeps telling you through the meditation that everything is impermanent. Nothing is permanent. Anitya, anitya. Now that keeps coming, and you're in a position where you are kind of permanent, Okay. You're
Yeah.
sitting in a space, you know the space that you're sitting. You know after 10 days, this whole thing is going to get over. It's nice to get the feeling that everything is impermanent. Okay. Just to listen to that word. But during the pandemic, you actually experience it. Because I had some 8 programs in that month and everything was ready. And all of a sudden, it was like everything just went to dust, right? Everything had to be cancelled. And you had to think of how long this will last. What is this whole thing, right? So you're suddenly in the middle of nowhere and you are not sure whether you're going to start all over again. You're not sure what is going to hit you, how long this pandemic is going to last, and who's going to be affected by it. So this experience was something very different. But what I learned in this experience is it gave you always look at the when you're trained to look at the positive side of things, then
Yeah.
you look at the there must be a purpose. Okay, so this was a time when it helped me to stay with myself, to reflect on myself, and to think of all the participants who had trusted all these years and come from faraway places to just listen to me, to pay me, take my course despite all the hardships that they had. And that was the feeling, the empathy became stronger for me. So I should thank COVID for that. That was the story I told myself. I'm all the time into myself. I, my training, my storytelling, how has my story impacted another? And everyone says, ma'am, you're wonderful. I feel elated. I feel wonderful. And I go on. But have I put myself in the other person's shoes at all? And that is when I got the story of all those people right from the beginning. It was beautiful to recall. And I actually called up people during this time, said, thank you for coming, despite all you, and they were so happy.
So you actually had the sessions even during COVID?
Yeah, I had.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
had with new participants, but with the old participants, I had not connected with them earlier. Because once they finished the course, they would go.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. This is rookie mistakes 101.
Okay.
So excuse me out of this. This is bound to happen.
Right.
This is bound to happen, and this is for me to learn. So I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
But it happened. So so my question was, you said you did have other sessions, and then the people really found a lot of value in the stories. Like, what is the one thing you often hear, like, as far as like how you've helped people? Have you noticed like people, is it the stories that they tell themselves, or they enriched their storytelling capabilities so they could, talk to multiple people and influence other people? What is it that you notice people get a lot of value in? I'm sure it's a range of things.
I'm glad you asked this. I often go to a place called Tiruvannamalai,
Yeah.
where Ramana Maharishi is there. And most of the time, what I hear is people come with about 25 questions, and they have a lot of problems in their minds. But when they come in front of him, they just seem to find all the answers, and there are no questions to ask. Okay, so you find the answers by just looking at a person, right? So somewhere I feel that's what happens in my course. People come with a long list of, I want to take away 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to reach to the corporate. I want to be this. I want to be that. I have to know how to tell a story at the end of 3 days or 4 days. I have to be here, 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 here. And that's the first few minutes of my workshop. Okay, so in the introduction session, and I just listen. And after that, I write down the expectations. At the end of the workshop, nobody comes back and says, you didn't go through what the expectations again, or I got what I wanted. But they just say, I completely feel transformed. And I think this is not a storytelling workshop at all. It is something more than that. And I feel that this is a life-turning course for me, a life-changing course.
Wow.
99% of all those who come to the course say, we will remember you not for the storytelling course alone, but this is a life-changing course for me. But when I ask them what it is, usually they just say, I don't know, but it's just changed me completely.
Wow. It's like almost transcendent that they've kind of held. What is, there's so many things I want to get into. Can I tell you a quick story I told myself that really transformed me? Okay. This is a really quick short story, and I feel like it's really in the process of changing me. But tell me if this is a story I tell myself, is that you don't have to suffer every moment. It's really like it's up to you to suffer emotionally every moment. And it's like, it's such a quick little, short little story you can tell yourself. And I was thinking to myself, like, I wish I knew this in my 20s or 30s or my teens or something like that. How do you stay so vibrant and then just full of life, Geeta? Like I look at you and I'm like, man, I really, one can only aspire to be somebody like you. I really aspire to be like you, this radiant all the time. And it's like I've watched a few videos in preparation for this conversation. I know I'm all over the place right now. I watched a few videos, and it's like you really invest in yourself. My wife and me were watching it, and we're saying, my God, you really kind of invest in that character you're playing on the screen. Like you're making all these animal noises on the screen. How did you incorporate the animal noises into your act? Like what was it's so cool that you do that. And by the way, what is the most difficult animal voice you can make or sound you can make, I guess?
I think a lot of people have a difficulty in getting the lion's voice.
Okay.
The lion or the tiger, because it's called the throat sound. It's like throat singing, the people who do throat singing. So
you're really good at that?
So I'm good at that. So
wow.
It comes from the throat, which is yeah. So I am the lion, right?
So cool.
So they always tell me to teach this sound, and I tell them, okay, it's from the throat, but then they'll start coughing because not everyone can make that sound. Yeah, it's a bit of you'll have to be very clear from where exactly from that throat you're getting that sound.
How do you evolve do you ever evolve? I'm sure you do. Evolve your act or your storytelling or your kind of method of telling people, like, incorporating various things. Like, how do you do it? Like, do you just sit down and just kind of ideate, or how does this go?
Yeah, so I think that's a gift from God, or from above, because I think when I was very young, I had this, I used to imitate people very well. So I think I was good at emoting people. And I realized that when I did storytelling, what is it that would attract a person? Or what is it that attracted me when I was young? So if you look at, the first thing was Tom and Jerry, or, the Tweety bird. I think I saw another putty cat, so I started thinking of what people might like when you want to bring out a character. And that's when I started observing. And I said, okay. And there are some sounds which I think that, suppose it's a giraffe. Now, the giraffe doesn't really have a sound. But I do sometimes the movement of a giraffe, walking slowly or with a neck held high and you know, just like he's eating slowly and he's picking this leaf from the tree. And I think I kind of become the giraffe.
Mm-hmm.
I think I am the giraffe, and how would I pick that from the tree? No, so,
And you
and
have
I
no
don't think that,
inhibitions.
no, that's the right, that's the right one. That's what people say. So the minute you come into the picture,
Uh-huh.
uh, that will fade. I don't know if I'm making sense, but
Yes.
when you are the character sometimes, then you don't have any inhibitions that somebody is watching, and then you
Oh,
kind of, and you're not worried whether, you'll be judged.
okay.
So I think that drops a lot of masks that one has, isn't it?
Yes, indeed.
It's all this mask.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking it even while I'm talking to you right now. In all honesty, I'm thinking like I was just wanting to have a conversation with you, but then there's this thing in my mind like, oh, people are going to watch this. People are going to wonder what what are they going to ask you? How is this going to look in? Like why? Why do it?
Yeah.
It's like get out of the way. The thing is though, I got to say this, Geeta, is that when I'm thinking about talking to you or talking to anybody, and I've done a few of these so far, I just feel like, oh God, I'm going to be a natural. I can I can chat with people. I love the people's stories. I want to get to know what they're doing. And it's just, and then when I come to actually doing it, it's like, oh, I'm in the production, I'm producing, I'm producing something. And it's like, yeah, you're right. I should get out of my way. And I think
Yeah.
it'll take some practice. Like, how did you
Yeah,
realize that?
yeah, the same. Um, I had to tell myself a lot of things too, Rajiv. One of the things of becoming a storyteller was also because, when you're growing up, you're asked not to lift your head and look into the people's eye and talk to them,
Mm,
and, watch out what you're talking.
right,
Don't laugh so much.
right.
All the don'ts come in, right?
I
So,
was told not to smile in my
oh my
passport
God.
picture.
Oh God.
Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, so one of the things that was challenging was that, even in a school or in a classroom, usually they pick out the intelligent ones or the persons who can answer.
Right.
So I had to ask myself whether I was really weak, that nobody is asking me to answer or tell something, or what is my strength. Can I use my strength for anything that I want to do or aspire for? So one of the things I thought I would do is, let me try this out. So I remember the first storytelling session that I did in Valley School actually was in front of this children. There were 300 children, and I actually hopped like a frog because it
Wow.
did the story of the fish, frog, and turtle. And these children, I must tell you, they were elite children. I mean, they were children from very sophisticated societies. So,
Right.
the teacher is not very well respected, I would say. Okay, because they look at you as a class also, right?
Right.
You're so I wanted to, so I was scared because I didn't know whether they would laugh at me, mock me, but then I said, no, I have to get out of this. So I actually jumped like a frog and I told the story, and all the children loved it.
Mm,
And that's when I said, it's okay, because you're a teacher and you have to be that teacher who will be, whom children will remember after they have passed out of school. So don't start with an expectation right now. You do your best,
mm,
and don't bother about the older people because they're doing it out of jealousy or I don't know what.
Yeah.
That don't do this and don't do that. But I said, I'm going to do what I feel is right. So that's when I kind of, started telling my own self that I'm going to do this.
Did you reach a point where you had to like kind of introspect and tell that story, or was it just sort of, you knew that, like you had to just kind of get out of your way? How did you come to that realization? Was it like a low point?
I think I was also capable of one more aspect of myself, is that when I spoke or told a story, people would listen. So in case the story I forgot somewhere in the middle,
Yeah.
nobody would know that I would put a fish instead of a frog. And then I would make a sound, or I would sing a song and cover for it while I'm thinking about the story. But everyone thought it was the natural way of the story flow. So I think I had that thing of the audience would not know whether I remember the story or not, or the flow of the story. So I would just go on, and then only I would know that, that's the part I had missed out or something like that. But that was in the beginning again. But then once it becomes a part of yourself, you wake me up in the middle of the night, I can tell you that story.
How? Yeah, that's the thing that I really wanted to know from you. Like, you're such, I look at somebody like yourself and I think you're manifesting the absolute version of yourself in a day to day, right? And I feel like, I don't know, I don't think like me, I can speak for me in the engineering space. Like, there are some of us that don't live or manifest ourselves, and it's kind of scary. This was one of the things I was talking to the previous guest, who was an abstract artist, and he was saying how he kind of hid behind this kind of facade of living a normal life by getting a bank job, and then he would go paint all the time. But it takes a lot of courage to kind of manifest yourself. And I know you've told me the story, at Valley School and kind of what happened there. We can get into it if you want. But to make that transition from not being fully kind of manifesting yourself to doing it every day and just hoping that things will go well and you'll have food on your table, like, how do you, like, where do you get that courage? Like, do you just have like a strong conviction that you're good at something, or you just kind of like say, you know what, I'm just going to give this a shot, we'll see where it goes, and then we'll kind of work from there?
So I think what you said, the second part is very true. Give it a shot. And the worst thing that's going to happen is death. The worst thing that's going to happen anywhere. So look at fear. Okay, the ultimate fear is only of death, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
So almost every day,
I have a fear of losing status. I have a fear of losing my grocery that I buy every week.
Oh gosh.
I have a fear.
So you just have to add up. If you just add up the fears,
yeah,
isn't it? You add up each fear, you're dying 1,000 times every day.
Oh wow! I never thought of it that way.
And is it worth? Is it worth? Because worst thing is you're going to lose something. You're going to lose someone, or you're going to. There might be everything that might be taken away from you. Okay. And the last thing that's going to happen is death, which is inevitable anyway. What is the point in dying every minute to, oh God, 2 more years and I'm going to die and I'm going to die? Or if I go like this, that death will come. If death has to come, it would come. I think a lot when I even think of doctors, many doctors say that we didn't save somebody's life. It was in that person to live. His genes, his DNA, his will had the script that, he would survive the worst accident. And there would be somebody who would be perfectly all right. And suddenly He would die on the operation table, right? So I feel that there's this larger than life, a big, huge universe, and you look at yourself, just flesh, bones, and your whole self.
Yeah.
This tiny little thing, 5 feet 2 inches walking.
Yeah.
In this vast earth, which has so much power, and the cosmos, and the planets, and all the stars are being held and they are not falling. All the meteorites are there. I mean, there must be such a great power. You have to give that benefit of doubt, isn't it? And I feel that when all these, when the universe is believing in that nature of itself. So they say when you believe in your own nature, that nature which is within you, it has an astonishing way of taking care of you. But you have to surrender to that which is beyond me. But it doesn't mean that you don't put in effort. You put in your effort, but not the effort of fear. I think fear is one wasted effort.
How did you have this epiphany in life, or is it an epiphany?
Yeah, I think I've also went through. I actually fell into a ditch. I actually had accident. I had 3 encounters with death. So I'm very thankful because I think what I'm living now is a bonus given to me. Once I escaped a plane accident, it caught fire after I got off from the flight.
Oh, wow.
This was something called the Air Deccan, which was introduced long ago in Bangalore. And I had a flight to Goa. I had a workshop. And I had to come back from Goa. And on the way, on the sea, they announced there was fire coming, smoke coming from the sides. And there was just one oxygen pump. And they said it's technical failure. We're very sorry, but we're returning to base. But just
We're very
hold
sorry.
on.
Yeah.
We're very sorry. This is all that we can do.
Right.
And well, I just froze because I didn't know. You're in the middle. You're at the mercy of the plane, the pilot, the ambience around
nature.
You don't know what would happen. So you just hold on, isn't it? So it landed, and we all slid on those things. And the last person left the flight. Was a small flight, thank God. And we just ran towards the airport, and it just burst into flames.
The whole plane did?
The whole plane.
Oh my God.
So I just watched it and I said, it is just the timing, isn't it? It could have happened 10 minutes before. None of us could have survived.
That's right.
And another time is when I went with my daughter. I went to Thailand, and we went on a cruise, and we went to an island. And in that island, it was simple, beautiful, nice. Only 2 of us were there. We had come in the Jeep with 2 more guys, and they had gone away somewhere. And so it's only my daughter and myself. And she had put her leg in the water, and it looked very shallow. But suddenly she slipped in, and she started drowning. And then that was my emotional side. I held her hand and I started drowning. But somehow she got onto a log. She came ashore, but I was drowning. And it was, again, nothing for miles on end. A huge ship comes from nowhere. And there's a sailor who's right on top of the ship. He sees me, my hands. He jumps in. He comes and saves me.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know this until, they pulled all the water out of me. And then those 2 guys who had come with us, they said, oh, we didn't know you couldn't swim. I said, yeah, but, I didn't know that this is going to happen. Then I said, who saved me? And they said, there's a guy there. And I went, it was a waterfall, and he was wearing a blue shorts, but I remember that very well. And he was a white man. So I went to him and I said, thank you for saving my life. He said, oh, anytime. And he jumped into the waterfall to swim. And it was just that for him,
it was a normal day. Yeah.
It was a normal day. And then I went back and I said, oh, I've got a lease of the second lease of my life, right?
Right.
So sometimes you feel, why is it that you've survived?
Mm.
Why have you survived something? Maybe there was a purpose, right? Because only after that, I actually became a storyteller. During these two accidents, I wasn't a storyteller. So,
Oh, really?
yeah,
Wow. So those kind of actually pushed you in the direction to say, all right, I think I just
then
really had to
it's not,
manifest myself.
no, and that I don't dictate anything.
Oh,
I'm not responsible for anything, right?
right.
Things happen. That's it.
That's
And you
it.
had to survive. Finished.
Yeah,
I mean,
I so agree with that. Like by the way, I don't want to miss this part you said earlier. It's so profound. You said, the fears you have, you're just dying through the entire day, this micro death, so to speak, right? And
yes,
I'm of course it's a metaphorical thing you're saying. It's kind of like a death of your spirit, is that right? Like you're just kind of not.
very true.
And oh man, I think if there's anything, if there's one valuable thing I'll take out, this will be absolutely it amongst many other things. So cool. Um, okay, so storytelling, I wanted to go back to that thing where you're talking about Prime Minister Modi talking about India's long tradition of storytelling. What, how, how long is it? And I'm very uneducated about this. Like why was storytelling an integral part of our society? Why was, can you talk
Okay.
about that?
I feel, because I also used to teach history. I was always interested in
What kind of history
e-
did you teach?
Indian history, um, civilizations, Egyptian, Chinese, explorations, inventions, reformations, and then revolutions. So I taught all this.
Have you talked about the Enlightenment movement as well? I'm really obsessed with that.
Oh, yes, of course.
Wow.
Especially, I think we had something called the Bhakti movement. And more than that, what interested me was Buddha, of course. I was very intrigued by two great saints when I taught history, because I had to learn about it myself before I told the students about it, right? So it gave me an insight into Mahavir and into Buddha. And I think I was very taken up by both these characters. Um, and I was always wondering if this enlightenment is the halo around the person. But when I started meditating later on, I realized that there's nothing to achieve.
Mm.
We are already enlightened, but we get surrounded by the invisible walls of prison that we build around ourselves, all the dirt and dust and emotions and envy and jealousy. So what we need to do, enlightenment, is dropping these.
Mm.
So you have to do the reverse process of dropping things. When you start dropping, you find you're lighter and you're able to go back to that womb stage. So the purpose of life is to go back to a simple being state. That is enlightenment, not
But
seeing colors.
but what do you say about the fact that people say you have to have goals? If you don't have goals, you're not going to get anywhere.
No, I don't
You don't buy into that.
at all. Because I think we have to work on a lot of on the reverse process, what they call as Neti theory. So
Okay.
if I want to, I want, so I don't have to go seeking for love. You know, when you change something within yourself, you can feel love. Love is nothing but I'm still envious. I'm still jealous. I'm still angry. I mean, tell me, they're all normal human beings. But when I start realizing I'm angry. And for what reason am I angry? When I start reasoning that out, the anger starts falling off, right?
Right.
Then you watch jealousy, and the jealousy slowly goes. Not overnight, nothing happens overnight. All homework has to be done, right? So every day you do a homework on yourself. I think that is the main meditation that one has to do. That why that first of all you have to accept that I don't like to be jealous. It is disturbing me. If something doesn't disturb you, you'll never get rid of it. But that I want to get rid of this is what will be the first seed. So then I say, okay, 99 times I'm jealous of that person because she wears more beautiful sarees. Or she's become a storyteller because she's an actress. Okay, and it anchors me. It
Right.
anchors me. I've struggled 40 years, 25 years. That this lady, because she's an actress, she's become popular and she's become a storyteller. I said, how mean of life. Okay, because
Right.
this is still on the very peripheral thing. Then
Right.
you look at her and then you say, she does ads, she's acting in movies. What kind of a line it might have been? And she wanted to be an actress, she wanted to be an act, she also wanted to be a storyteller. So isn't that craving inside her eating her up? Whereas here I am happy storyteller, right?
Right.
So what is that inside that is eating her up, in which I am superior to her, right? So what is this why should I get angry? Why should I feel jealous? And there goes the first. There's no point in being jealous because you pity them. And then you slowly start getting aware of it. And I think it slowly starts dropping, slowly. But there is no perfect state. Absolutely no one has achieved that perfect state that you can get rid of everything and be this absolute pure simple. And only at death that happens. In the womb and in the tomb.
I will push back on this idea, and you tell me. You could probably convince me otherwise. There are days when I have a checklist. Let's say I put a bunch of things on there. I need to get all these things done. I want to do at work. I want to get 4 things done, and then I want to go work
Right.
out. I want to go meditate, and I want to eat good food. And then in the evening, I want to watch a good podcast, let's say, and then have a good night of sleep. And then the following morning, I feel like, oh man, that was such a great day. I got a lot done. I achieved it. But the genesis of it was that I put all those things down and then I got through it the next day. So that is sort of goal setting and achieving and satisfaction too, right?
Yes.
And you're saying
Yes.
that's okay. That's okay to have.
That's fine.
That's different than, how is it different than
Okay, I'll
what we
tell you
just
how
talked
it is
about?
different.
Okay.
I also have goals because we have to go on. You have to brush your teeth, you have to have coffee, you have
Right.
to go to work. All these have to happen. It's a discipline, right? Man has a discipline. And today I have to send 10 mails. Today I have 4 interviews. All right.
Yeah.
So I had this just 3 days ago. I said, and it was a beautiful morning. I did my yoga and I said, today is going to be a beautiful day. Okay. And I was so determined to complete at least 10 tasks, which I set out to do because it was one holiday I was getting after a long time. And I said, I must finish my personal work today. And
Yeah.
tuck, 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 tuck. And my ego says, yes, you can do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing will happen to you. And then suddenly there's a heavy storm and there is rainfall. And I didn't see the paper where they said there's going to be a power cut in the whole of Bangalore for a whole day from morning to evening 5. Now,
Right.
most of these tasks that I had set myself to do was to settle bank things, call up people, okay, all this. Everything went for a toss.
Right.
Because even the backup didn't work in the building. And it was dark because of the cloud and the wind. Now is when the testing time comes. So are you going to be disappointed? Or are you going to say that I will accept this and see what best I can do, perhaps the next time when I get a break like this. Or when can I do this work again? Right?
But you could approach that with the mentality, let me control what I can, like kind of a stoic mentality, like where you say, I can only control what I can control.
I only did my calls, those otherwise I watched the rain, because what else to do? It was dark, and instead of cribbing and worrying, I said, okay, I know that the power is not going to resume until evening 7 o'clock. And there's no point in rushing with work because most offices, most people close by 5. So I said, I'm going to relax. I make myself a nice cup of tea. And then I looked at the task and I said, postpone to the next holiday, right?
Yeah. But how do you square this? The earlier point you made, which is another profound thing you said, is just being, just manifesting is just being. And I feel like some of us, and this is my past self too, is that I would interpret that as, well, I could just kind of be, and I'll be happy just not doing for that day, whatever I did. Wow. And then long term, I would look back and say to myself, like, I wish I put myself enough challenging tasks and goals so I would have achieved those other things along the way.
Okay, so I think I go back to when you said being state, most of the being state in the present is oscillating between if only I could have, and I wish in the future I could do.
Right.
That is your present moment, remember.
Right. That's
Are
right.
we actually in the present? Very rarely.
You're making too much sense. Stop.
And this has other repercussions because this, if only I could have and I should, has guilt attached to it. A huge bag of guilt.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's always in the future or in the past, and past is dead. And we are trying to relive that past, which is hurting because you cannot resurrect the past. If only you had been a good mother, your daughter would have done very well, isn't it? If only you had been a wonderful wife, your husband would not have left you and gone. Okay. If only you had been a wonderful daughter, by this time you could have also been a judge like your brother. So tell me which one. Anything you take is to say that whatever you're doing at the present moment is not good enough because you did not do something in the past. And now the second part of the advice comes. So you know that you have not achieved anything, you're not good, blah, 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 blah. So at least think of the future, at least now wake up to the fact.
So what's the right balance? What's the right balance? I mean, I see what you're saying, but I'm also going to push back there and say, well, those kind of regrets also make you better, right? Like, because you can tell yourself the story then, there's going to be a story of redemption. I'm going to redeem myself. I'm going to change my habits today because of the shame I'm enduring from all of those failures, those failings of myself. Yes, but those are the only things we live with.
No, I don't agree with this.
You don't agree with that?
No, because I'm 16, I'm beautiful, I fall in love, okay? And I fall in love because it's a natural thing to happen. Right. And there is no guidance, remember. Okay, so love happens. Love happens beyond all your, and then you're wholeheartedly in love. And the other person is love. And of course, you have your parents who say, oh, what rubbish. Okay. And this man is saying, I'll die if you don't marry me. Okay. I get married to someone else. Now, there are two things. I'm going to tell that I'm not being sincere to my husband. And this thing, I ditched that man. Because this is what is told to you. both the men are going to make you feel terrible because you neither belong to that. And this was not because of anyone, but the parents' pressure. But at the end of it, I sat down and I said, how do I live a happy life? See, happiness is what nothing. Happiness has something, one little thing called wisdom also. Okay.
I
You
agree.
have to be wise.
I
You
agree.
have to take accountability for your life. And I said, one thing I'm not going to do is to feel guilty.
Is to what?
To feel guilty. I will not. Because in the past, it happened because it happened. It had to happen.
You couldn't control that because you just
can't
didn't know.
control.
Yeah.
So if that man comes back, if only you had married me, you would have been a queen by now. Because he owns some, 5 houses and 3 cars. But I can't feel bad about it. But I told myself, well, if I had to marry you, it would have happened.
But you can also get wiser, like you said, and in the future.
So when you get wiser, Rajiv, I wanted to say the past should be dropped. It's like a dead body.
But you pick your lessons to learn.
Of course, but you don't allow it to affect you. It's not that you won't fall in love again. How do you know?
Right.
You can't be too cautious. But to accept yourself and be accountable for yourself without guilt again. So you don't have to sit and cry. Why is it that I'm falling in love 100 times? 100 times people are ditching me. No, that is what you have to resolve, right? That you can resolve, but not carrying it. I'm saying resolve it. When you carry that baggage becomes heavier, especially in the last journey of your life. You're carrying. Drop.
Yes.
And
yes.
for that, you have to be ruthless.
Ruthless. How ruthless?
You can't think of. I very frankly, I didn't even think of that guy. He died also. I mean, he passed away. But I never said it was my fault. It was, see, because he drank or he married somebody else, he felt miserable. Why should I carry that guilt? So you don't carry that guilt.
Yeah.
You say it's sad because he couldn't resolve his life. He couldn't resolve his life. He couldn't find a way out. It might look very cold, okay? But I couldn't help it. If I could help, because I put all my effort. I fought. I told my parents, no, I have to marry. But I couldn't. Because there is something called age. And you're dependent. You can only do that much. You cannot do more than that in that particular circumstance.
But if we played the clock back again, you could go back in the past. You don't feel like we could have done something differently. We would have done the same thing over and over again every single time.
Yes.
Isn't that the truth?
But I'll tell you that story of this is one of Mahavir's story. When the man is being chased in the forest, I mean, he's walking through the forest and a tiger chases him and he runs for his life. Okay. And then as he's running, what happens is he holds on to the thing of a banyan tree, the ropes of the banyan tree, and he swings. Now, as he swings, he is on top of a well. And in that well, there are snakes and things down, so he can't let go of the rope. But when he has trouble that root, the bees are stinging him. They're all biting him, and the tiger is waiting. Now, either way, he's going to die. Whether he lets go, or because of the sting, or if he comes back to the land, the tiger is just waiting to devour him. But in all this, he closes his eyes, and there's a drop of honey that falls on his tongue, and he relishes that moment. He says that drop of honey is what he relishes in this entire thing.
And that's all that matters.
And that's all that matters.
Wow.
Because anyway, you can't be in control of events, right?
Right. Such a great story. Man. So I was going to ask you a million questions, and
Okay.
I have all these things written down for me. What is your belief on critical thinking? This is a complete left turn, okay?
Yeah.
Do you feel like we could use more critical thinking in our society, or do you think we have enough of it?
I think we have enough of it.
Really?
Yeah.
You think that okay, this is something I really, maybe you could change my mind about this. I watch videos of, I don't want to say this, the places where, there's these mass discourses where there's a spiritual leader
True.
who's talking about a
Passion.
variety of
Yeah.
ideas, and a lot of it, and I was in part of one myself until about 2015, and I have a lot of remorse about that I didn't question ideas. I didn't question. I didn't have the critical thinking in me, and I feel like I wasted some of my mental power not questioning it. And this is actually ties back to your earlier point. What you were saying was, don't talk loud, don't laugh loud, don't say this in front of elders and all of that, right? So I think that kind of subconsciously affected me. And I think to myself, I wish I had more critical thinking. And that way I would have just thought for myself. Thinking for myself and arriving at a conclusion, intellectually or otherwise, for myself would have been the best way to do it, instead of just not questioning anything and just taking everything at face value. I was just like that. And I see my fellow citizens like en masse doing this, just sitting down and not questioning ideas. And so therefore, I feel like maybe we need more of that.
So I also look at it as a lot of activists who oppose a lot of things and who raise flags. And I admire them because they are able to voice out. And if you didn't have these voices, we won't have the good and the evil, as they say. That you just take everyone for granted, and again, fear becomes the key for this mass hoarding, mass following. It's because of fear.
Right.
Fear because the person is weak. See, we follow a herd or we follow people because we are weak within ourselves. And we are like creepers. We need something to hold on to. Okay. Well, I'm no one to judge people because each one's personality is different. Some of us are very, very weak in ourselves, and we blindly follow. And we need a leader to follow, a person to follow, like a guru. Okay. And I'm not saying whether the guru is right or wrong, but these gurus also thrive because of people like this.
Right.
Now, as long as it's not affecting me, I'm fine. So I have a choice. I don't have to go to that group. Or even if I go to the group because I want to please someone, I just sit with a very detached thing. Like I do this I've gone to a lot of gurus and listened to them and gone to their courses, but I've not allowed anyone to influence me.
But that's
I don't take
you.
anyone seriously. Yeah.
But that's you. You've
Because
been
you take a
raised.
filter and you just say, no, that's it.
But
so when they ask me to come again, I don't. When they ask me to bring somebody, I don't. So from my side, I can say that I will not do it. Why? We are not here to change the world. Because the world is like the five fingers, right? Each one is different.
right.
In this little palm, you have five fingers which are not alike. So we are not here to change the world. But we can do that for ourselves. So there, a little bit of Gandhiji, you be the change you want the world to see.
Yes.
So don't waste your effort. Very politely say, maybe you will not belong to that herd. that satsang, that WhatsApp group, are you willing to still stand out alone? Because it's loneliness again. See, that's what the mantra they use is, don't feel lonely, join us. You got it? So this is the weakness on which they prey. But we
That's
can't
right.
stop that. But we can't help it.
And that's, I think that's the point I guess that really bugs me is, I live in America, where this country has quite a bit changed my opinions of a variety of things. One of which is there's a strong emphasis on thinking for yourself. The society in general is like, question everything, think for yourself. And that was, and also in a lot of things, in a lot of ways, don't worry about what the other person thinks about you. You just manifest yourself, that kind of thought process. And I feel like what you're saying, 100% I agree with you. It's like, that's absolutely the right way to do it. As a society, this is one of the hobby horses that I have, is I want for us as a society, and this is me as a nobody talking, a curious nobody, but nonetheless, I think it makes sense that we all have more critical thinking incorporated into our lives, and thinking for yourself, apply the filter. You have your own intuitions about life, and don't be scared to manifest all of that, right? Like, and give yourself permission to make mistakes. And anyway, I think you're in agreement with that. I guess I was talking as scaling up to a society. We could do much better. We could do much better.
That's right. That's right. In that case, I think I would be for the critical thinking.
What? How did? And it's like, I always ask. This is always like surprising to me. People like you are so few and far between that I meet in my life or watch online. Again, was this your upbringing, the events that you had that you described to me earlier, were these aha moments, the epiphanies in life? Or was it just like you sitting down and thinking about things, like just sitting yourself? Like, I do this sometimes where, I'm faced with some difficult situation or something like that, and I have to just sit down and actually think through it. I've only been doing it only recently. In the past, I would kind of be like a leaf in the wind, just wherever the wind takes me, I would go. And then now it's like, okay, now I'm going to anchor myself down and actually think about this idea and make subtle changes. And it's more deliberate. Life is more deliberate in that sense. It also stands in odds with what you were saying earlier. Just kind of don't think too much. Analysis by paralysis or paralysis by analysis. I do think, though, the critical thinking aspect. I say this especially, and I'm dwelling on it so much because I have regret that in my past, I wish I had. This is one thing that at a societal level, if we said, look, everybody, think for yourselves. Oh, by the way, I wanted to ask you this question. What do you think about this idea, Geeta? Tell me. What if we make you the official storyteller of Indian children, and your stories are told to every kid versus let's just thought experiment. The parents won't tell anything to their children. And then you're the only person in charge of telling all the children for the next 12 years, K through 12, the stories that they need to be told. Do you think that'll work out?
Of course.
Stories of valor, stories of courage, stories of all of that.
Stories with no morals.
Why not?
Because it defines what you need to take away from a story. That's the most beautiful part of storytelling, is that from A to Z, you can take away anything from a story. You can take away a color, a balloon, a woman with dimples, a fish just swimming. And I've seen children coming out with minute observations, very minute observations. And I'm talking about 2.5, 3-year-old children. So sensitive to the story. So, and I love that because there's no one thing. So children tell me slow and steady wins the race. No. Because now there are nearly 50 versions of the same story.
Yeah.
So you see, that is something I love about the storytelling, that it allows a person, you were talking about critical thinking, right? So I can think and I can take away from that story that which appeals to my heart. And every child, I've done this innumerable times. 30 children, each child will take away something very different from a story, and none of them would be similar.
Right.
And this is exactly the opposite that we are doing in education. We are telling all the 30 of them to follow one thing about this. This is the way it has to be. Data required to be proof, finished.
What you're saying is so radical, though. I love that idea. It's such. I mean, like I think of this even in a larger sense that as if you're living your life out, you could live your life out any way you want. It's a blank canvas every
Exactly.
single day.
Yes.
And those stories kind of like limit your imagination, so to speak, or maybe subconsciously program you to think, this is the script I have to follow.
Yeah, because in the beginning I used to say, okay, there's a woman selling balloons and there's red and purple. And so I have decided the child is going to love those colored balloons, right? So I'm adding. And then they say indigo color. Yeah, because they want to prove that they know colors. Okay, so orange in it. All right. So and she has a cat. And then where do they stay? They live in a tower, okay, which is right high above all the other buildings. And it has a winding staircase. And they go whine, 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 whine. And that's how they go right up, okay? So this is what. And there is a part when she loses her cat, this is a favorite cat, and she becomes thin. And then she's blown up into the sky with the balloons. I mean, she flies high. And then she comes down with her umbrella like a parachute. And she falls into the sea. And whom did she find in the boat? The cat. And then they're very happy. And she again puts on weight. And I mean, she's happy. She eats well. And she and the cat live happily ever after. It's a story. Okay?
Yeah.
And one child was sitting like that. And I said, why is she so happy now that she's eating well? She's again making balloons with the children and the orange and the red and the meow. The cat is going for his fish and comes back in the evening. Oh, but so sad she can't fly again. It'd be such fun to fly. So you see, and then I asked him, what did you like about the story? Whine, whine, whine. I love the winding staircase. I wish I could live in a house with a winding staircase. So just look at this. You assume that a 2.5, 3-year-old child is definitely going to like balloons. And that's why you add balloons in the story or you put the colors. But none of the kids told me that they like the balloons. Each one came out with something totally different. Some of them said, I wish I could live on that tall tower and see the sunrise. The sun must be looking so big from there.
So true. So true. I mean, how would we even implement something like that, Geeta? Is that at a scale, at a what you're talking about to me is like such an innovative idea, and it's so out there, right? Like for a person who's just so used to kind of like being with the herd, you think to yourself, yeah, morals, it's the indoctrination through morals, right? Like you say, this is good, this is bad, that's awful, and that starts off very young. And we, as a, at least I speak for myself, like you take that whole hog and you think, well, the elders. I was having an argument in 2015. I was just debating with my friends about religion and things like that, and we came to an impasse. We just couldn't and then my friends told me, and these are all my friends in their 30s at that point, and they tell me, well, my parents told us these stories, and parents always have good intentions for you and they wouldn't tell you otherwise. And it really kind of shook me up, because for me, I used to think like that, but I'd kind of given up that thought a while ago. And it's like, yeah, we all kind of latch on to something.
Sure.
And you know, we've kind of bought into that idea that, well, the elders have it, or, you know, past history has it. But you going back to the earlier metaphor, it's a blank canvas, and then you could paint whatever you wanted.
You wanted, yeah.
Yes, and every single day. And this is one of the reasons why I'm talking to people like you, is for me to get personally, like, I'm more and more getting convinced that this is the only way to do it, you know, is to kind of manifest yourself every day without really that sort of expectation of that moral ending at the end, right?
Because I also came from a family like that. So this doesn't come from your family, despite your family.
Right.
In spite of the family, you come out with this. You will have to, but main thing is you take, I told you that you have to take responsibility and be convinced about what you're thinking. You have to be convinced, right?
It has to make sense to you.
Yes. Like one child in the rural area, when I did a survey, one part of children had gone to school, one part of children had not gone to school. So there were some officers with me, and we called the group of children, one group who had gone to school, the others who were, because we were looking at the dropout rates. And another group of children who had not gone to school, one group who had gone. So those who had gone to school, when he asked a question in maths, that man couldn't answer. That boy, none of the boys could answer, because he said if you bought one chocolate, if it is five paisa, and if you bought 4 chocolates, how much would it be? He didn't know. But the children who had not gone to school, one of them answered. And then he answered the next question also. Then he asked him, see, there's a government school nearby, and they say that you can go to the government school. How come you have not gone to that school at all? He said, no, I went to that school. And then what happened? I sat in the classroom, and then he said 40 minutes and another 40 minutes and another 40 minutes. And I was sitting in the same place. And he said, I am a person who's a shepherd, who takes sheep out for a walk. He says, when I took the sheep out for a walk, I give them a long rope, and they can wander wherever they want, okay? And they'll all come back. And it's even with the sheep, it's like that. Why in the classroom, I am made to sit 40 minutes. Nanke ishtu kuda, in Kannada, I said, ishtu rope kuda nanke kodalla. They don't even give me this much rope. I can't move out of my class 40 minutes after 40 minutes. Why should I learn how can I learn something when I'm sitting in the same place 40 minutes after 40 minutes? I didn't like to go to that. So now what kind of answer? How do you convince this boy to go to school? That officer, the government officer said, how do we convince this boy to go to school now?
Yeah.
Because he's happy and he's giving the answers for your maths better than the children who had gone to the school, right?
And even if he didn't answer, that would be fine too.
Yeah, fine.
He's
and
just
he was much, yeah. I mean, you were saying about critical thinking. So he was thinking aloud.
Right.
And nobody had an answer for it.
It's such a profound story that it's like 40 minutes, you just like sit there and drudgery as a kid. You just want to play, right? Yeah. And you just want to just experience life. And it's the same. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It's the same in the corporate world too. You're sitting in a cubicle, and
exactly.
If you want to really be creative and do creative things, you want to allow your mind to wander in some sense. Of course, there'll be some structure, but you need that sort of creative, you need that space for your mind to kind of expand. Right? Like,
in fact, 90% of the people who come for the course, men and women, they say that we've just quit our corporate job.
Really?
Or it was just too much to take, sitting in that one place and doing the same work 24/7. It was so stressful that we just needed to come out.
What did they do after that? What did they do?
So they are on a break. That is
Okay.
one thing. They're on a break. And so they are exploring different workshops. And one of them would be storytelling. So, but I'm glad that they're at least exploring. And that break is something that they can have also. Because now that the money is not the main constraint.
Right.
So, thank God. That is, it's not the money alone that is going to ask them to keep working. So they're able to take that break, and then some of them go back to a slightly different kind of ambience in the same corporate job, but not that one part that they were doing all this time, they are not doing anymore. Some of them actually take a change, complete change, because it's also how much is enough, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, that's a big question again.
I was watching this one guy, Geeta, recently. He's kind of a chief economist in Northwest, some prestigious university, something like that. And he was talking about the same exact thing where there's this kind of mentality that you go to one restaurant and you don't like the food. This person, it seems, he just pays for whatever he ordered. He just walk out and go to the next restaurant and order and eat at that restaurant. Because he says, like, life is too short to spend time eating the food you don't like. And the same with his career. He tried about 5 or 6 big things, starting from being an accountant. Now he's like this big banker, economist guy, working on some big research project. And this is the stuff that he really likes. And he talks about the same thing about dating. And it's such a liberating thing, isn't it? Like to say, hey, if I don't like this thing, society can say whatever it wants. I think for me, it's the one thing I struggle with a lot because of the subliminal messaging, I guess, is that how is society going to judge you at some level? And it's more the judgment me on myself, right? Like that's the ultimate thing. But that's the thing I hear from many people, is that you have to conform to something. Anyway, if you have to go, you were looking somewhere else.
No, that's okay.
We can stop at any point. This is quite open-ended.
I thought
I'm really enjoying this.
Thank you.
I'm really, really enjoying this. So I really appreciate. This is just me having a conversation with you and just going through the gauntlet.
No, but I'm so glad. I'm so glad, because it's very different from 99% of the people asking me, so when did you become a storyteller? And what was that which made you become the storyteller? And how long you've been doing? What is your favorite story? How many people? It's the same, it's so predictable.
Right. Okay. Good. I have a lot of I don't know. I think, like, to myself, like, I mean, I wrote down to myself as well here is all these stories and all these questions I wanted to ask you. You've heard of course, you're a history teacher. So Winston Churchill, the guy who won World War II for at least the Allied forces, let's say one of them. Yes. What do you think about his style of storytelling and his speeches? Have you ever thought about that? Like how he galvanized the country and the winning the war and things like that?
Some people have a gift. I heard, I read about Churchill. One of the gifts he had is that if he, about 20 pages or 30 pages, he would look at it as a picture. I think that's the most natural way that man told a story in the past. He would let you see the picture he has when he tells you the story. So you don't listen to the story, you see the picture. The storyteller helps you to see the story. So when you see a story, then you're absorbed in that story, right? So you're not absorbed in the person, but in the story.
So you're saying you're kind of like a visual, you're always kind of like visually stimulated when a story is told to you.
Like if you say that there was this boy who was sitting next to the shrine in Japan on a beautiful cold mountain, the highest perhaps in Japan. And early morning, there was a red streak in the sky. And just as the sky was opening up, there were hundreds and hundreds of golden cranes. People used to call them the holy cranes, and they just flew past as this boy watched in awe. And one didn't know whether it was the sunrise that was giving the golden glitter to the cranes, or whether it was the gold of the crane that was lighting up the sky as he watched them flying past him right to the end of the other horizon. Right. So as you're telling the story, you're actually seeing the sunrise and you're watching this golden cranes. So I'm helping you to see the story, and now you're more absorbed in the golden crane, but not in me, right? So it's more of the story that you're absorbed in. You're seeing that story, and that's what I think Churchill did. And he had a very pictorial memory. So when he told in his speeches, people could see it, and he was very convincing, and he was so good. That's a gift he had. That's a gift he had. So
is that a style of that style of telling a story with like using a lot of imagery
yes.
in your language, as well as, do you think even I strongly believe this, especially in my career along the way, whenever I try to report out a status or talk about a new idea or whatever, it certainly helps when there's a picture I draw on whatever the interface is, and it just invariably works. Like, if I put it in a block diagram or some kind of like geometrical shapes or what have you, why is it that? Like, do you have any intuitions as to why? Because a lot of times I struggle when I don't see people really use that style. There's a lot of like wordy sentences people use to convey an idea.
Yeah, but I think long back, first question that you asked is how stories evolved, right?
Yeah.
All around the world. If you look at the and since history, I think man was a wanderer and a survivor, right? The early man, if you look at him, he just wanted to hunt, and he wanted to have his meat, and
Right.
all his time went in looking for that animal, bird to strike, to eat, to tear, and then to sleep. So he was just a survivor. Yeah, actually, thought didn't come into it. It was only action, and it was survival. So that is how man began. And he thought he alone existed. I mean, he knew the footprints of the animals, he knew the smell, because it was all for his survival. But one day, he found fire, right? Or rather, the tribals always say that when man struck two stones together, they heard a sound saying, "Help me out." And so the fire said, "I'll always help you if you save me." And so man actually saved the fire. The fire became, because the fire can burn, but it didn't. It helped him to burn his food and cook his food.
Right.
But the minute the fire, the glow was seen by another person on the other side of the sea, he became curious, because there's another person just like me. And they say the first emotions of anger, jealousy, doubt, curiosity, everything started coming in man. And then he crossed over, and then there were signs, right? And there were symbols. You see, the first connection was not through words, because words came much later.
Mm.
And so he tried to convey, so he wanted to say what kind of animals are here. And he would show signs. He would use sounds. And so the story started around the fire. And the other man was ready to share his food also and tell his story. So that's when we became very animated. Help the other person to see this animal, to see this bird. Through the sounds, through the gestures, through the cave paintings. Yes, that was the first communication that happened. So I think the earliest form of communication is still within us, because the printed word came much later. Actually, in the Bible and the other, they say the word came first. No, it's not the word. It's this
Symbolisms.
Symbolisms. It's just the sounds, the symbols, and the picture. The big picture, Ra, the sun god. So, and then once they feared the elements, they made them into gods. So if you go back to that, we are still that, we have that dust of the early man, right?
Right.
So that's why stories still appeal, especially when it's orally told.
And do you think we're still, what I mean, there's so many threads out here that are open. One of the things I feel is like, when I'm in the corporate world, I want to be as animated as possible to convey new ideas. Sometimes I feel, and then I feel like very self-conscious that, man, do I look like silly doing this stuff? You know, is it very cheesy to do these things and animate myself and just make a fool of myself? And then I'll hear people afterwards saying, you know, and this is going to be very self-serving, but still, somebody told me recently that we miss some of the, and this is, I don't know why they said this, I've moved about 5 jobs in my current company through various different responsibilities. And the previous group told me, like, we missed that philosophical leadership. I'm thinking, you're talking about me? You're talking about me? You
so
see,
nice.
let me bring my mom and my sister and my dad here. Tell me again. Because I'm not that philosophical kind of a guy, but I guess people perceive me that way. And time and again, and you're reinforcing that idea that, how does this fit? Like, you know, we're in such like a clean, sterile, cleaned up environment, Geeta, in the corporate world at least, and there's so much room for this, where we actually have to, you know, like, I think of myself like, as simple as, you know, this is one idea I've really not manifested yet. At Caterpillar, we make machines. I work at Caterpillar, it's a company that makes machines that moves dirt and all that.
True.
I always think to myself, like, when people come out and report out their status on a Monday morning, and it's all words and it's some little piece of paper stuck on a wall and things like that. And I always feel like all we need is a graphic of a real machine on the screen, which is not a big deal. We can make that happen. And then we'll point to each one of them and talk about what we're doing and what trouble's happening. We'll have all these graphics along the way to kind of be representative of some situation. That's so much more like visual. And I feel like we'll cut through all this BS about trying to talk through things and people talking past each other and all of that. Like, it just, the storytelling, I guess the roundabout way of saying is that we as engineers or any other professionals, I don't know if doctors fall under this as well, but we could so much use this kind of extra ability, right? Like in any field, it could be the most highbrow thing we could think of. Like, you know, maybe let's take the World Economic Forum or something like that. We could still do it there.
Absolutely.
I mean, why do you think it's like, do you think it's stigmatized to act like that, to act kind of animated and convey a story? Do you think that's kind of like, or is it just in my head?
It's in our heads, because I often get that question. Okay, ma'am, whatever you're doing is for children. How do you tell story for adults? And this question comes from all the adults who have just listened to my story and have sat through my 3 days workshop, or course. I said, okay, so these 3 days you listen to all my stories. Are you children or adults? I asked them.
Trick question, huh?
I said, so you have the answer. If you have enjoyed the story and you have come out with all the elements that are important for the story, then what is this that you're saying, I'm an adult, that one is a child? It's the same, right? So there's actually not much of a difference at all. It's how you appeal to the heart, right?
And child is euphemism. Child is euphemism for it's kind of silly. It's not necessary,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
And what you're saying is that, no, this is just integral part of how we evolve as humans, and we make things, we ideate through things.
Exactly.
And that has to never be stigmatized, and we just have to just drop all those ideas.
Yeah, really, lots of it.
Wow. Yeah, this is so cool. Well, do you, do you, I know you use a lot of humor in your storytelling. Do you have a current joke that you really like that you tell people? What is the best joke that you like? You would like to, can you tell me that joke?
I think this how smart, some people say it was Mullah Nazruddin, but people say it's also...
Who's Mullah Nazruddin? I'm sorry.
So he's one of the very witty characters of those times.
Okay.
Somewhat like a guru. Okay, so there are a lot of stories about that. So one of them was that he's also a very smart person. Someone like say Churchill. Okay, so people would wait for him to come and talk. So he flies down one day and he hasn't prepared for his talk or his story. And there's a huge crowd, especially when you're very popular, you'll find this mass following. So all of them are waiting for him. And this is one embarrassing moment for him because he comes there and he looks at everyone and he hasn't prepared his speech and he's completely blank. So he says, how many of you know what I'm going to talk about? So all of them, do you know what I'm going to talk about? And all of them say no. And he says, if you don't know what I'm going to talk about, there's no point talking to you about it. I have to go think about it and I'll come again next time. And he goes away. Now it so happens that the second time he's confronted with the same crowd and it's the same feeling that he's not able to, he's not prepared for his talk. But the people have become very smart. Okay. So when he says, do you know what I'm going to talk about? They say, yes. He says, if you know what I'm going to talk about, then there's no point me talking to you about it. And he again goes away. So, the third time is when some of them say yes and some of them say no. He said, those who know what I'm going to talk about, please tell those who don't know.
Is this real or is this a story? It's great, regardless.
So he was such a, so that's where the wisdom, right, of Nasruddin. So,
wit, yeah. And do you think wit is like an integral part of life? Like you have to grow that ability to be witty?
Yeah.
As a storyteller?
So there is one more step that one more person added to this, saying that after all this, okay, he comes and he sees everyone and he says, do you know what I'm going to talk about? There's silence. Nobody answers anything. He says, now you're ready for my talk.
So cool. So cool. Yeah, wit. What is your take on wit? Like, do we have enough wit in our society? How does one grow wit? I was reading a book recently about how to grow wit. Like, imagine that, right? Like intellectualizing everything, right? Like learning how to grow wit.
How to be like happiness is a subject now in Britain.
Right. Oh, how to be happy. Yeah.
How to be happy. Yes.
Right.
And you have these laughter clubs, no?
I know. What do you think about that? Do you think that's fake or that's real? Do you think it works?
No, it's not real. I think it's just, I find it very funny because you have to, they say it helps with your muscles and so you have to laugh, right? But I wonder if you're going to do anything artificially, whether it's going to have any impact. Right? I think it's a lot like that.
Yeah, I agree.
So which I think I feel one thing that I've always felt, but people in India especially is maybe each culture thinks of that we're too serious people.
Yes.
I don't think we know how to take ourselves lightly at all.
Right.
Too serious, and that's again the conditioning. It's I don't think they say you have to be sensitive. I think we're not being sensible. It's not sensitive.
It's so cool that you say this. Yeah.
Only with that comes letting go. See, we talk so much about letting go, but when you're so serious about ourselves,
Yes.
then how can you let go also, no? You have to let go, right? So
You have to almost, you almost have to like lose any facade about yourself that you have, right?
Yes.
You have to, like when you say you can't be taking yourself seriously all the time. You have to, it has to do with ego to some extent, right?
Lot to do with ego, because anything it will be mistaken. So you'll have to watch out all the time. You're watching out what you have to say, what you shouldn't say. I mean, all your life you're spending in this. Not worth it. Not worth it.
You never had a situation, Geeta, where you're like, oh man, I have to say something to get back at this person because they insulted me. You've never had that?
I think I always thought it was a waste of time.
Really? Always.
Always. I always thought, why should I waste my effort in taking revenge? I might as well ask what next and do something for myself and build, right? It's not worth going back. I mean, nothing. It's only happened, and I've seen a lot of it in movies. The villain the hero will take revenge. The son will take revenge. I mean, it's not worth it all.
God, it's such a profound thing you say, Geeta. It's like you are my true guru. I mean, at this point, it's like, that's so true. It's like we waste our time on so many like these frivolous things.
Yeah. And use 99% after a person has spent life, you know that you've spent most of the time on little things, small things which didn't matter at all.
Right.
And you've let go of all the big things that you should have taken care of.
That's
because
right.
Because the small things have taken over all the, the major parts of life.
There was a proverb I heard, you spend all your life climbing the ladder, make sure that the ladder is on the right wall.
Wow, lovely.
And
don't miss there's a very nice, don't miss the forest for them.
Trees.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, these are proverbs that just
help so much. Yeah.
So much.
The larger picture.
Yes. This kind of like you talk about like being a waste of time. There's so much of that, isn't there, in our society?
All, if you look at anything.
Do you make people aware of that during your sessions when you do your?
But not deliberately.
Yeah.
See, again, being yourself is more than enough. If you're not another, by being yourself, which itself is a big thing. 99, all of us have masks, isn't it?
Right.
And we're only putting on masks or taking away masks. And then we don't know our real selves. But by being your own self, itself can be a very good thing for people. Many people say, oh, wish we could laugh like you. Wish, we could see I can still see that you're very childlike, man. I wish we could have retained that.
But there's a lot of shame and embarrassment with that, Geeta.
Yeah, I know.
And why do you think we have that? Is it just, I mean, I know you said it's conditioning on some level, but can we just kind of drop that in a moment, or is it just a muscle we have to flex all the time and say, okay, I'll be myself and I'll laugh at this thing, or I'll be stupid about this thing, or I'll say something extremely stupid right now. and not dwell about it later, because I am fallible. I make mistakes in life. And that's okay. Who gives a, who cares? Who cares? But it's such a deep conditioning. To even like realize that, you can always live with that, like how you live, which is you manifest that, which is you just your true authentic self every moment.
Yeah.
Right. And then somebody makes fun of you or laughs at you or whatever, it's fine. At least you're giving them a laugh. Is that how you look at it?
Yes. Yeah. and there is definitely there's no perfect situation. And
there's no absolute.
Never a whole life, no one has been able to please all the people all the time. Once we realize that there will always be critical people, you can just go. As long as to your conscience, you're clear. Okay, if people love. Doesn't matter. I don't care.
There's always going to be imperfections in life.
Yeah.
There's no absolutely perfect situation where everything goes according to how you planned.
I think most of us strive to be that perfect, reach that perfection, and that's what is the most stressful part of life. Is that I have not. It's my own degree. I against my own self. There is no other. This I being wanting to be perfect, being able to achieve everything, so that is my whole life. And we often blame others for it. But the cause is from me, the effect is from me.
But you're on board.
Asking you anything.
But you're on board.
Hmm?
But you're on board. Sorry to interrupt you, but you're on board with the idea that if you have to be hard on yourself, you have to pull yourself by the bootstraps and get on with it and do something with your life. Like if my life ideal was, I want to do thing X, I want to manifest myself where I help a bunch of people or I create great products or something like that, it requires for you to have a pursuit of that perfection in a sense, right? And that's okay, right?
It's okay if it suits you. It suits you, then it's perfect. If it doesn't suit you, then you'll have to think about it.
And how do you know when it doesn't suit you?
It will tell you. Because body, mind, they are beautiful organs and they are beautiful. There's an intelligence out there in the universe.
Is it a feeling? Is it a voice?
See, you will continue to do the things you are doing because you like being in that situation. Finished. Because if you didn't want to be in the situation, you would have found a way to come out. But you are enjoying it. Suppose you say, I'm depressed, okay? I hate the day as it moves. But you're not doing anything about it, which means you like that. Because you like it. Because if you didn't like it, you would have found a way to get out of it, right?
It requires courage, though. It's not that easy.
It requires courage, but then you would... So that courage is what? That I see the urgency of getting out of it. As long as I don't find anything is urgent, it is a convenience. Remember this. Everyone is in a position which is finding him or her security. I am secure about this position. This position gives me security. That's why I don't want to come out of this situation. This security, that is my story. I love being sad. There was a child once, I remember, I told the mountain and bird story, and I said the mountain waited and waited for the bird and felt so bad that he burst into a volcano. Okay? And that can be also one of the endings. And one of the children who was listening to the story said, "Oh, I love this ending. I love this ending. It's okay if the mountain bursts into a volcano. I love that ending. Let it be a sad ending." You see? Some of us like that sadness. So the person who's trying to redeem or trying to say, listen, those are the fools.
Person is saying what? Say that again.
Saying that, oh, I'm there for you, or, I'll tell you how to get out of it. I will give you this and feel sad and try to do something. Because that person loves to be, even a little bit of, even if there is a little hope that I definitely don't want to be in the position. Every person is a survivor. We are like animals. I often say, see, we all take tablets. That deer, which is caught by the crocodile, the flesh is hanging out. It's a young deer. And the deer somehow survives. And there is no one putting medicine. In that bush, that little deer for 3 weeks just stays in the same place till the entire flesh, everything. See, everything heals. It heals, it again gets up on its feet and goes. Yeah, so because that will to live, the will to survive, that is there. If the deer had a very weak stature, maybe it would have died because entire flesh is hanging out. It's horrible to see that. But the deer survives it.
How do we tune ourselves to kind of pay attention to these signs you're talking about? Because, sometimes, I feel like even your voice, your inner voice becomes a reflection of what the story you're telling yourself.
Yes,
and so it's like, and it's like, at what is your litmus test, or what should be your litmus test to say, wow, my neck's hurting really bad now, and it seems like I'm really stressing it in a certain way, and this is my body trying to tell me something. Like, where do you think that, how do you tune up your senses to pay attention to that?
I would say meditation, respect for your body, being aware of it, slowing down, for sure. Not the way that you're misusing your body. We don't pay attention to it, right? That's why we don't hear what it has to say. And that can happen only when you slow down, because the body is a slow process.
So how do you do it? You have a very busy schedule as a storyteller.
So one of the things that I never wanted to be is to be attached to anything. Because I didn't want something to hurt me. So I said I should be ready with a suitcase anytime to pack up. And this awareness I've been telling myself. As long as the going is good, it's fine. But not beyond that.
So when you say, I'm guessing you're saying it's a metaphorical suitcase, you can pack up and leave.
Yes.
And so I
think from the beginning, I was ready for that.
So at any point, if you felt your body, your mind is giving you some sense of discomfort, you're like, you know what, I'll take 3 months off, or I'll just walk away from all of this. It's okay.
And I've done that.
My God.
Yeah, I've gone to Gomok. I have gone to the Himalayas. I've gone to Rishikesh. I've gone to I took myself off to go to Amazon. Okay, I just took off. I had a festival in Sao Paulo. Then I went to Machu Picchu. And I said, I'm going to take off to the Amazon, stay there for 10 to 15 days, just do a trek. And I was given the cottage called Anaconda. And I stayed there. There was no electricity. And I loved it. So I take my offs. I will not force myself. Nobody can force you. And I never go to the point where I'll get stressed. Because my body, I'm listening to my body. And I know one thing, that no one can take care of you. No one can share your pain, however close people are to you. You have to undergo that pain. So if you don't take care of yourself, nobody else is going to take care of you. So I don't do anything to please others. I do something to please myself first. That is if I feel comfortable.
And so you never burn out.
No, I'm very careful about that. And I do not compromise on my quiet meditative moments. It's not that, again, I'm not stressed about meditation, because then there's no point of meditating at all. Yeah.
Right.
So there are days when I say, oh, I haven't meditated for the past 3 days. It's fine. Let me meditate today. So I'm not stressed about, nothing is a must for me. Nothing is a must. I can, the flexibility I've given myself.
It's so antithetical to the way life is structured for the masses today, isn't it? Because
very true. And for that, I think you need grace. One thing I thank, it's not one God, Krishna, Rama, nothing like that. I feel that someone somewhere, maybe even my ancestors, maybe had wonderful forefathers. So I think of all of them every day. I thank them, saying that somewhere there is a blessing. You know, the package that came into my body, the protons, electrons, and neutrons were all good cells that is making me tick. Right?
Right.
You have to be lucky. That package has to be good. Maybe Brahma was in a very good mood when he produced me. In manufacturing, no, not much of defects. So you have to thank him, right? You have to thank when you get a good piece of product. Aren't you lucky? You know, it lasts you for 10 years, 15 years. So I think we have to, that I would say that we need to learn to take ourselves lightly.
Absolutely. The people that I enjoy spending most time with talking are the people who have a sense of humor about themselves. And I know my mom does this. She laughs at herself and people will make fun of her. And of course you are like that, it seems to me. And I just absolutely gravitate towards people like that who have no like airs about themselves. Right.
Yeah.
But then coming back to this, the corporate life that we live, like so some people will push back on that idea and saying, if we didn't have this kind of a rat race, just go all the time, go, we wouldn't have the iPhones, we wouldn't have the electric cars that we have today. You have to have that. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more people get into the meat grinder, right? They grind themselves out. And then you have a lot of people burning out. And this affects society at scale, at large. But then if you don't do it, the flip side is at least people, I think it's a fallacy, of course, but people think that we'll go back to the Stone Ages. We won't have enough things that would make our lives better. How do you, we're like, for example, I'm sure you heard of Elon Musk. They're working on this Optimus robot. Okay, so that Optimus robot is supposed to make our lives easy. It's supposed to be our digital servant, so to speak. But in order to build that, you need people to work 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, 80 hours a week. Are you saying that if we had people who genuinely wanted to do that sort of thing should do that, and people who don't want to do it, do something else, we'll have a much more like kind of self-actualized society? But we might have less of all of this, but we'll have a generally happy society.
Exactly. We will. Because just today I was thinking, now it's very recently that we have filtered water, okay?
Right.
And we carry this and we say, yeah, all that. But just even 2 generations before this, my grandmother or great-grandmother, they all survived. They all lived without the telephone. They all lived without. So people have lived without also. It's not that because we found it that we were the great people and great inventions.
But the quality is better. But the quality is
It's
better, I
better.
feel.
Quality is better, but I don't know if life is better. See, always one compromises for the other. You always take away one piece to put another piece, right? It's never like the perfect state.
But there are certain things that are net positives.
And then there are people, as I said earlier, I feel like I tell people there are only two types of people, those who give and those who take. You can't have this give and take. It never happens. Some people keep giving all their lives. Some people know how to take all the.
So which one are you? Which one are you?
I don't know, because I'm just trying to figure out what I am. Maybe one part says you're more a giver, but a nice kind of giver. Okay, so I give stories, for instance. And I love giving. See, you're giving because you love. So I love working. I'm going to work 50 hours a week because I want to find life on the other planet. And I'm going to put my thing through that because it's my passion. See, that person has it in. But if you're forcing someone to do that, then only it's a problem. So you need all kinds of people in this world. And the world itself, if you see the evolution of the world, it's all a movement. It's all in a movement of time. Whatever it is, I'm not going to outlive 120 years, 150 years, maybe, longevity of life. But I can never outlive the mountains. I can never outlive the oceans. This is reality. This is absolute truth, right?
Right. And you
okay,
have this...
I'm extending life. But what am I going to do by extending life? Medically, I'm saying, okay, fine. You can live up to 120. The Harvard Medical School, or they're all trying to find out how long a person can live. Maybe they can bring back a youth portion into us. But is it going to make man happy to go against nature? Because we're having two parallel lines. One is what is natural. And one is we're trying to be natural by substituting it with other artificial ways of intelligence, right? What they call as artificial intelligence. You can never give the emotional peace that a natural thing can do. Nature has its own ways. There will be repercussions, both in man and nature. You tap one part of nature, the other one will backfire.
There is an optimal, excuse me, there is an optimal point though, where you could have technology enough to a point where people, for example, don't fall sick in a village and are suffering because of that.
Yeah, that's right.
You could have this robotic ambulance or something like that just flies over this town and then saves this little kid out of pain or suffering or death or whatever. You could have that in society. We could engineer things like that, right? But so there are certain things that are net positives. When I look at history, for example, there's a lot of suffering and this conquests, and there's like war, death, destruction. I guess I'm advocating for some part of technology for sure, and I'm guessing you would agree with this, is like the fact that we have YouTube or the fact that we have Zoom. I could have never done this even like 5 years ago, right? Like, and sharing of these ideas and sharing of these common pains and sorrows and laughter and things like that is ultimately going to bring us together as one planet. Right. So I think you're in agreement. There's definitely there are a lot of positives.
Positive. Yeah, of course.
And but what you're also saying, just to summarize for my personal sake, is that the guy who wants to do that, or the gal who wants to do that, let them do that. But if you're not cut out for that, just walk out of it. Just do what makes you happy.
Yeah. Because it's a price you have to pay then.
It is an absolute
think,
debt you're taking from your life, and it's a short life, and we're all gonna, the impermanence of life you talked about, it's gonna come anyway, and you might as well do something that you enjoy every freaking moment.
Absolutely.
Gosh, this is great. All right. Where did you go to school at, Geeta? Like you said, Mumbai, right? Is that where you grew up in?
I grew up, I was born and brought up in Mumbai because my parents were there. My father was working for Caltex, and I grew up, even in Bombay, I changed a lot of places because earlier we were in a place called Sion. So I went to a school called the Little Angels High School. The fees was just ₹1 a month. And that's where I went. And I still remember the teachers. I still remember the classrooms. I had the best, I would say, the learning, the most beautiful school life. I enjoyed going to school. So that was the first 5 years. And then for 6th, 7th, 8th, we shifted to Bandra, and I went to a school called the St. Joseph's High School. And then my father, he got a job in Chennai, and he joined the Indian Oil Corporation, or the Indian Oil blending plant. And so I did my 9th, 10th and matriculation in Good Shepherd Convent in Chennai. So actually, 3, 4 schools. So I don't have any great feeling about alumni meet, because when you study from 1 to 10, then you feel nostalgic about them. But since I was in many schools, I just went along.
These cities have such a personality of their own, haven't they?
Yeah.
Bombay, Chennai, Bangalore.
Yes.
One thing about Bombay, my mom grew up there as well, and it's like there's, of course, it's a cliche to say it has an energy of its own. Do you feel like there's something very unique in Bombay that you've grown up that you could share with us? That's one part of it. And the other part I feel like is, like you said, you went to the school that you went to, and you had the best teachers who kind of had an impact on you. So we could certainly do, now that we have the internet and all of that stuff, we could just have one gigantic, great school for all of humanity, right? And we could have that same experience for everybody, right? I mean, I think you're in agreement with that. What do you think is Bangalore? What is you've lived here for the majority of your life,
40 years. Yeah, 40.
What do you like most about Bangalore? Or do you like anything about Bangalore?
The climate.
That's it? That's it? I thought you said something else. Are the people too timid? You think, Geeta? This is a
No, I've
question.
seen the changing face of people here, because earlier it was just not very friendly, I would say. Especially when you come from Bombay, you find that difference. People are very much into themselves. So it's not a very friendly place, if you ask me. But over the years, because of the migration, it has become the second Bombay now. So you find a mixed culture of people around you. And I think even cities are taking one global phenomenon. Everywhere, it's been. But I still feel that Bombay has the friendliness that there's something very nice about Bombay is people are friendly and very adaptable, absolutely adaptable people. Maybe the city makes you tough, but especially when you grow up there, it makes you really tough, and it makes you very adaptable. So you will find that still about Bombay, which you might not find in Delhi.
And where do you think India as a country we are at, as far as our intellectual evolution and how,
Uh,
to your earlier point about, like, we were talking, like, we're lacking that public intellectual leadership, and people with courage need to come out and speak and things along those lines. I'm thinking, like, how do we have to get out of this rut, right? I feel like we have to. It is a rut, in my opinion. It is a rut, and I see us moving from one silly controversy to the next. It's majority of it is manufactured. I'm very convinced it's just manufactured for us to just kind of just distract us every 3 seconds, and then we're on to the next thing, we're on to the next thing and the next thing. And we're just not able to keep our eye on the ball. And by eye on the ball, I don't mean that we all have to be putting our head down and going to work and things like that, but just pay attention to what is important to us. It's not the next controversy. It's not the next somebody did something, somebody did some drugs, or somebody said something controversial, anything like that. I feel like we're falling for these ruses very, very often. Do you feel so as well?
Diversions, yes. And to distract people from a lot of things, giving them meat,
Red meat.
to thrive on.
That's right.
Yeah. It's very sad, actually.
So you recognize that too. It's not.
Yeah, very much, very much. And it's not fair also, because I think we as a race of people are very united, and unnecessarily we are, asked to hate each other or go away from each other, form tribes of each other. And as it is, I think the countries from around the world are like that, and they're trying to see, and India was an example, but now I feel we are also falling for it.
Right.
And I'm wondering, one thing is whether it's all about time again, because if you look at history again, there has been wars, there has been destruction. Once upon a time, the Greek civilization was
thriving.
The Romans and the Greeks, but now they are nowhere, especially if you look at the economic situation and all, they are finished. So once upon a time, one which was great, is fallen apart. And so it would be with, I feel, time is the best healer. We don't know what will happen in, say, 3000 or 3020, when we may not be alive, but everything has a way of turning, and everything is moving, and nothing lasts forever again. So rulers will change, and there will be dynamics, and so you will see every nation in the world going through these graphs, right? And the world itself can change, especially now because of the technological evolution. I think a lot of changes can happen. Cyber crimes, and only one fear I have is we don't know what is actual and what is not real, and this truth and real, there will be no line to differentiate, because man is influenced, and he is influenced by what he sees and what he hears, and all of it is not true, because now you can manufacture anything. You can create all lies on the screen if you want to hate someone. You can, and the vice versa is also true. So what is the actual truth is what, I feel that people will be caught in that. We won't be able to differentiate what is really the real truth about India.
But if we had enough critical thinking as a society, we would reject these bad ideas at source. We would know.
But each one from their corners looks convincing. So we don't know actually what's the real truth of gold. How many of them have actually got to the bottom of anything and found out is the real question.
But that's going to be a chase. We always have to strive to get to truth. Like I think as a society, we need to flex more muscles to be inquisitive and seek the truth out for ourselves and then come to our own conclusion. I think if we do that more often than not, the truth will be self-revealing, right?
That I see. If you look at history, the 100 Years Revolution, the tale of two cities. After 100 years, there was a revolution, right? And they overthrew the bourgeois. So nothing will last forever, especially when it is not right. I believe in that. All our avatars itself, if you look at it, it's like that, right? They've all taken, the avatars have happened because it was ripening of the evil, and then there's someone who strikes it and who kills the demon. So I feel that even among the people, when the thing grows stronger and stronger, and you keep pushing, there is a point where after which you cannot, and then automatically that will, stir up the entire. It will be a revolution for sure. We don't know when. Don't know when and how, because nothing which is not right or which brings unrest among people will be tolerated for too long.
Right.
I believe in that, but the question is the time.
Yeah, I think it's up to us, our generation. This is for our taking.
Yes.
This is for our taking, that we need to actively will ourselves out of this mess. And it's possible, right? It's certainly possible.
Yeah, and it's happening around the world. When you overthrow someone who has been pushing you too far, you try the other one. If the other one is also not good, then you try it. I mean, you learn by giving everyone a chance, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about this before I was preparing for this chat with you, because I was thinking in the 80s and 90s when I was growing up and going to school, I went to St. Joseph's Indian High School, which was on the Christian side of town. It was the more like the, I guess, westernized or whatever you want to call it, British influence and things like that. And St. Joseph Indian High School was a melting pot of many different, like, people of wealth backgrounds, race, religion, you name it, you fill in the blank. And we all went to school. I was a Hindu growing up, and I had fellow mates who were Catholics and Christians, and you had Muslim kids and all of that join school. And for the most part, everything went great. And it felt like in the 80s and 90s, it felt like, there were bumps along the way, there were riots and this and that, but we generally got along. We didn't dwell on all of these divisions as much as we do today. And I'm thinking to myself, when I see certain articles or stuff, I try to keep myself ear to the ground as far as, what is the cultural, like, zeitgeist right now, like through WhatsApp and stuff like that, or I'll go read something on Reddit, excuse me, and I'll see, oh, such and such a person is a villain, this group is just trying to intentionally plant some things and all of this stuff. And I'm thinking, like, wait, were these people dropped into our country like in the middle of the sky somehow? It was never like this. We lived in a multicultural neighborhood, and I'm sure most people listening to this in India would have. And it's like, why are we falling for this ruse? It's just right in front of my eyes. Like, we're reading this stuff which is totally manufactured, right?
Right.
And it's like, where did this hate suddenly come out of? Who manufactured this? What should we ask ourselves this question, please? Because we got along pretty well. We yelled on top of our temples, and then the mosques yelled on top of theirs, and then somebody else did something else. I mean, there's room for improvement in all of these areas. I'm not going to downplay any of that, but it's just, it could be done with just a much lower tone, right? Okay. Well, you're agreeing with me then.
Yeah, because I feel it's like the nuclear bomb, which you can use it for a destructive purpose and you can use it for a constructive purpose. And well, that's the way it is.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're agreeing with me, because I feel like sometimes when I look at this as an outsider looking in to my home country, I think to myself, am I being too critical? Because, I'll get this pushback from my fellow comrades in India. they'll say, well, you're bringing your American value
Thinking.
system here. Yeah, you're bringing your American, ethical framework and blah, 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 right? Like keep that and shove it up and take it to America. And I think, no, there are some universals. There are certain universals that, I mean, I'm just looking at it from a very dispassionate viewpoint and just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, because the fanaticism has increased.
Right.
Too much of fanaticism.
And it's manufactured. It's manufactured.
Yeah, that's because, see, that's the flip side of technology. That's the flip side of the YouTube. Because I can use it now. I can animate. You can even misconstrue what I'm talking because you have the tools, right?
Anybody could do it. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay, well, I want to be sensitive to your time. I know. I mean, we've been talking for roughly, I don't even know how long we've been talking. 2 hours. Holy cow. I'll let you go. I'll let you go, Geeta. It's such a privilege and honor. And talking about these ideas is just like, it's one of the highlights of my life yet, and I'm so thankful. I have so much more I wanted to talk to you about. Like, I remember one of the things, and maybe we can have another discussion some other day. I know you're busy. Sure. You used a phrase, you said, that adds texture to life when I met you. And I was like so moved by that phrase that you mentioned. I was like, what does she mean by that? And I think I know what you mean by that, but it's like, shouldn't that be something we should be striving for in life, like that texture for life? And so anyway, so the next time we talk, if you're kind enough to come on my podcast again, I would love to get into all of that and then have a follow-up discussion. This is such a blessing for me. Thank you so much, Geeta.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rajiv. Yeah, I think that is one thing I might also have mentioned as a leading comment is, it's like, we've lost the romantic era.
Yeah.
So there was romance during the 16th, 17th, 18th, even during my times, I think. Somehow that whole era is gone with the hurried life, hurried parents, everything is hurried. So same thing, another thing that I would like to revive is ethics and aesthetics. That's what I meant by texture.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we could, the refinement of the beauty of life.
Right.
I think we're somehow not looking at the beauty of life because we're also caught up in things that we've allowed them to control us. As you said, the entire media, this kind of bombardment of people around us who are only having, I wouldn't say negative thoughts, but a lot of anger and frustration in them. And I wish we could restore the people to go back to the poetry times.
Me too.
Looking at the beauty of life.
Me too. How profound and poetic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your evening.
You too. And thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't deserve.
Really enjoyed this wonderful talk. Yeah.
Me too.
And we'll meet up soon.
Yes. Thank you.
Sure.